Hello, I hope this is working. As per usual, I'm just waiting to see if I'll appear on my laptop. Oh, I think here I come. There I am. Cool. So, hi everyone. Before going into your comments, I'll quickly hide them so that they don't distract me. I'll just quickly summarise my thoughts on the episode because, yeah, I didn't like it in a nutshell. Uh, I didn't want this to be the outcome. Obviously, I want to love every single episode, but I was just so disappointed in this one. I'm sure we'll get into it once I start going through your messages, and hopefully, I'm not the only person that disliked it. I did look on Twitter beforehand, and it does seem like I'm not the only one that's not the biggest fan of the episode, so that's something at least. But yeah, I just thought there wasn't much of a plot, just like with all the other Chris Chibnall episodes. I thought the Pating was a nice idea, but just not threatening enough. I've said before in previous live streams that I kind of like it if we have at least 3 deaths per episode. And in this one, we only got 1, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I just wasn't engrossed in the story. I just felt like it wasn't much of a threat. I didn't really care much for the supporting cast either. I didn't care about the general woman. I can't remember her name whatsoever now. But I didn't care about her secret, which turned out to just be the fact that she had a different illness. So that wasn't interesting. I wasn't fascinated by the pregnant man either. I've just seen so many pregnancy stories on TV, and this didn't really do anything differently, besides having the odd line of dialogue showing how, it's different for this alien race. Like, the pregnancy only lasts for a week. You've got 2 umbilical cords. Yeah, I just didn't find that interesting. But anyway, so that's my brief summary of the episode. As per usual, in one of the corners up there, I don't know if the video's flipped this week or not. Hopefully it's gone back to how it was in the first 3 episodes. But in one of these corners, we've got the usual polls for you to answer. So question 1 is, how do you rate the episode? And I'll vote in that myself in a second. Question 2 is, which episode of Series 11 is your favourite so far? Question 3 is, which enemy is the best? So you can vote for the Pating if that's your favourite. It's not my favourite, I know that much. And then question 4 is, which episode 5 is your favourite? And so I've put this episode, the Tsuranga Conundrum, against Oxygen, The Angels Take Manhattan, Time Heist, and I feel like I'm missing one, The Girl Who Died as well. Hopefully they're all on there. So vote in the polls and keep messaging away your thoughts on the episode. I'm going to quickly vote in the polls myself. So if you're interested, for rating episode 5, I'm going to put I didn't like it, because as I've just said, I am not the biggest fan of the episode. For which Series 11 episode is the best so far? Any of you who have been watching this stream from at least the Rosa edition will know that I absolutely loved episode 3, Rosa, so much so that it made me cry. I thought the ending was incredible. And yeah, no episode has been better than that in my view. So it's still got to be Rosa for my favourite episode of Series 11. Which Series 11 enemy is the best so far? This is a trickier one. It's not going to be the Pating. I know that much. I think it's still got to be Tim Shaw for me. I thought he was threatening. He looked alien at least. I thought it was interesting how he came to the Earth on a hunt. I thought that was an interesting plot for the episode. So yeah, that's who I'm going to vote for. And then the final question, which episode 5 is your favourite? This is a no-brainer for me. I absolutely loved last year's Oxygen. Yeah, I just thought that episode was really good, really creepy, really scary. It took risks. Like, Bill nearly died at 2 different points of the episode, really. Um, so yeah, you had that, and then also the Doctor was blind for half the episode, and then you have that amazing cliffhanger where it's revealed that he's actually still blind, which I just loved. So Oxygen is definitely my favourite episode 5. But anyway, so I'll stop nattering on and we'll start looking at your messages. Let's see what you all make of it. Time to get out the water. So, who liked the episode? That's another thing. Let me know if you did like the episode, because it'll be interesting to have a contrast between my dislike of the episode and your love of it, or liking of it. TM Martin, hi Dr. Blue, I gave it 2 stars, not original, and the creature looked like a Pokemon. What did you think? Oh, that's not even to me, that's to Dr. Collectible. But fair enough. 2 stars, yeah, I think I would give it 2 as well. Like I said, I just didn't think it was that good. I thought it was really boring. And it's such a shame because it was an episode I was really looking forward to as well. Yeah, just the fact that we had no idea what was going to happen in this episode, and we didn't even know what the villain was going to look like. I didn't even know its name until a couple of days ago, because I read it in an article somewhere. And yeah, so I was just really fascinated by that. And also, I thought the episode title was really good, the Tsuranga Conundrum. I liked the conundrum word because it got me thinking, and I was just completely let down. What even was the conundrum in the end? Let me know if you know, because I have no idea. Yeah, so it just didn't live up to the title, and maybe I was expecting too much from the episode, but even then, I just thought it was a letdown. Ilaki TV, I have some questions. When the Sonic lost power, were you worried they'd written it out of the script like with the 5th Doctor? I wasn't, to be honest, because as far as I'm aware, there's been a couple of episodes where the Sonic has been destroyed halfway through the episode, and then the Doctor always makes a new one in time for the following episode. And actually, I've just noticed a nice parallel there. The same thing happens in last series, episode 5, Oxygen. The Doctor's, the weird blue Sonic that not many people liked, that got destroyed halfway through the episode. What else? He lost access to the TARDIS, which, God, that also happened in this episode as well. I feel like Chris Chibnall has just taken things from last year's episode 5 now. But yeah, no, so what I'm getting at is there's been quite a few stories where the Sonic has been destroyed, but it's never really mattered in the new series because come the next episode, the Doctor will have got a brand new one that will look identical. Oh, so I'm the right way round this week. Sorry, I noticed I was still on my laptop, and I was curious to see if I was flipped or not this week. Dr. Collectible liked the episode, that's fair enough. Ilaki TV, do you think Ryan and Yaz's relationship is growing? He told her he wants a kid. Yeah, so I think I've said this before. I do feel like Chris Chibnall is gradually working towards Ryan and Yaz being a couple. So it's a very gradual thing, and we're only getting 1 or 2 scenes per episode where they become closer. But yeah, no, I hadn't noticed the fact that he mentioned he wants a kid to Yaz. I didn't pick up on that at all. But yeah, I think Chris Chibnall did write that scene deliberately to further their relationship. Ilaki TV, why do you think the Doctor knew the General but not the Sentry? No idea, to be honest. I suppose there's so much history jostling about in her brain that she can't recall everything straight away. And And maybe because she's quite a sociable person, she's more likely to remember people rather than eras. Because ultimately, eras are just numbers. I don't even know what century this week's episode took place in. Was it the 38th? I may have just made that up. But yeah, so that's just a number. Whereas with this general, she is famous for God knows what. I didn't pick up on it. Elaki TV, have you noticed that Ryan still won't fist bump with Graham? Yes, I did. And just like I was saying, with how I think Ryan and Yaz's relationship is gradually growing, I think Chris Chibnall is doing a similar thing. Obviously, not a romantic relationship with Ryan and Graham, but I think come the end of the series, Ryan will see Graham as a grandfatherly figure or a father figure. And there may be a nice, I don't know how I'm describing it, just a nice scene at the end of the series where he finally does return the fist bump. I think that'll be a nice character moment. The Doctor Who Expert 7 thought the episode was shocking. Absolute disgrace from Chibnall. Yeah, so I kind of agree with that. I mean, it is quite a strong opinion you have there. But no, like I said earlier, I didn't like the episode myself. Max Carney, why does Jodie not get a new screwdriver by the TARDIS? Well, she probably did. Maybe off screen, once they eventually got back to the TARDIS, she somehow programmed the TARDIS to make an exact replica of the one she made in The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Green Emeralds thought the episode was predictable rubbish, very poorly written. Yeah, I agree. I knew as soon as it was revealed that the General had whatever illness she had, I knew she was going to die at the end of the episode. Yeah, I didn't know how they would stop the Pating, but obviously, as with most episodes, I knew it would be defeated. But yeah, no, it was just very, very generic, I found, and just not very exciting. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, we're now at the halfway point. How are you feeling about Chris Chibnall's run as chief writer and showrunner so far? Good question. I don't think it's looking great, to be honest. So we've had 5 episodes, like you've said, and only one of those episodes stands out for me, and that's obviously Rosa. And that episode is the only one we've had so far in Series 11 that isn't written solely by Chris Chibnall. So, yeah, and the episodes he has solely written, I've said this before, I do feel like something's missing from his scripts. And I do believe now it's the plot and the writing. It's just I never really picked up on that before. He's good at writing characters, but the plot isn't there and it's not interesting like it was with Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat. So I am a bit worried. Though having said that, I believe he's only written 5 of the episodes this series, and we've had 4 of them so far. So theoretically, he's only, of the next 5 episodes, he's only writing the series finale. Which means we've now got a run of 4 episodes, I think, that aren't written by him. So hopefully the quality starts to improve now. I am looking forward to next week's episode, Demons of the Punjab. Because it's finally a new writer. And I don't think Chris Chibnall had any involvement in this script besides the typical showrunner duties. So hopefully it will feel fresh and original. And also it's another historical. And obviously, as I keep nattering away about Rosa, I thought that was a really good episode. Partly because it was grounded in reality and true history. And hopefully we get a similar thing with next week's episode. Green Emeralds, do you think 3 companions is too many? So often they don't all serve a purpose. Yes, I agree. Before Series 11, I thought it was a brilliant idea to have 4 people in the TARDIS. I feel like I just held up 8 fingers then. Hopefully I didn't. 4 people in the TARDIS, not 8. That would be way too many. But yes, I mean, for the most part, it works. But like you were saying, quite often there is the odd character in the TARDIS team that doesn't do much, and it always seems to be Yaz for some reason. I find that for the most part, Graham and Ryan get these nice character moments, but Yaz always misses out on that. Even in last week's episode, which we all thought would be centered a lot on Yaz because we met more of her family, she was even sidelined then in a way. Um, but yeah, so sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. Do I think three companions is too many? Yeah. So I do think, obviously, it's too late to change it now for this series, but maybe in series 12, lose a companion. Um, because I just think having three companions plus all the supporting characters, the guest characters in each episode, you're just left with too many people to handle. And that I find quite dull. And that was a big problem I had with last week's episode. SL Productions thought the episode was great. That's good to know. If you're still here, let me know what you liked about it. TM Martin, it was rubbish for Doctor Who fans, but great for the Saturday morning cartoon crowd because Pating looked like Pokemon. Yeah, I can see that point. Yeah. Dave H, I loved the Doctor finally seeing the Doctor's personality when having one-to-one conversations. Think too many companions. I'm not following that. I loved the Doctor finally... No, sorry, I don't understand what you're saying there, Dave. Green Emeralds, what was the point of the pregnant man? Not funny, no purpose. Completely agree. Yeah, as soon as I found out about the pregnant man, I thought, yep, this is going to be controversial. And I think it certainly was. I mean, not many people on Twitter have been talking about it, at least not that I've seen. But I'm sure it will come up in many reviews and many discussions in the progressing weeks. But yeah, it wasn't funny. I didn't find myself laughing at any of the jokes. It was pointless, like you said, no purpose. And as I said at the start of this video, I've just seen so many different dramas that have a pregnancy storyline that I just felt really bored seeing Doctor Who do it because it didn't do anything different. Loads of shows have had characters that are reluctant to watch someone give birth. And so Doctor Who didn't do anything differently in that aspect. The only thing that was different was the fact it was a man giving birth. That was it. The gender was different. There was just, other than that, if the script made it a woman instead, all those scenes would have been pretty much the same. And you would only have had to take out a couple of lines of dialogue. That's how insignificant it was, really. Hello, Adam, the Ultimate Whovian. Hi, man. Yeah, this episode was ... Yeah, it's an odd one. It's a disappointing one for me. Tia Martin, no point at all to the pregnant man being other than to set up an emotional tie-in to Ryan and his dad issues. Good point, yes, and a nice link into one of the points I wanted to mention. So one of the very few things I liked about this episode, I should actually list off all the things I liked in a mo, but one of the very few things I liked was how we got more of a backstory for Ryan and how we found out how his mum died. That's a big shame that he was the one to see her dead body and how it was a sudden heart attack. That isn't nice. But it was good to learn about that all the same. And we got more snippets into his relationship with his dad. I must admit, I did like how that tied into the pregnancy storyline. It gave Ryan something to do, at least. Because other than that, the companions did hardly anything in this week's episode. Yeah, they were quite pointless. But no, I did like how Ryan's dad played into this week's episode. Adam the Ultimate Whovian voted. Thank you very much. If any of you guys have recently joined, there's a poll in that corner, I think, up there. Well, there's several polls. several questions for you to answer that basically compares this week's episode to other episodes. And I'm just curious to see what you all make of it. How long have I been going for? 20 minutes? I'll leave it for a bit longer before checking the poll, because I want as many of you to vote in it as possible. Elliot Bray. The Pating summarises what Doctor Who villains have become. Everything is the worst alien in the universe, but none are shown to be actually dangerous or terrifying. Yeah, I suppose I agree. Yeah. So you've got me thinking about Tim Shaw, because I do find him threatening. But at the same time, I'm sure there was claims, like you were saying, about the Stenza being the most dangerous alien in the universe, but you never really get that vibe. It just seems like, yeah, they're dangerous, but they're not the most dangerous. And yeah, we haven't even had that many aliens this series. We've had the Stenza, which I've just talked about, the Remnants, which are basically just rags. You've had the Pating, and that's it. The mutant spiders were originating from Earth, and then you've had human villains. Other than that, yeah. So I don't know. It's just, I don't think Chris Chibnall is good at creating aliens. Although I should quickly point out the Pating wasn't actually his idea. I read in Doctor Who magazine recently that he actually got that off another writer. I don't think it's a writer that's writing for this series. I think it's just a script editor. But yeah, so I don't know. There's still hope that Chris Chibnall can create good aliens, but I'm not holding out much hope, to be honest. Which is why I'm really looking forward to the episodes not written by Chibnall now, because I want to see what other people come up with. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, do you notice that Chibnall is getting away from comedy and focusing more on emotional storylines? I did not notice that. Did you find this week's episode was emotional? Because I didn't really. I didn't think it was anything. Wasn't particularly funny, wasn't particularly dramatic, wasn't particularly emotional. It was just a thing. A pating. A really bad joke there. Oh god, I can't even edit that out now. Blimey. Anyway. Dave H, I think the Pating would have been better if they were in groups instead of just the one. Interesting point, yes. Yeah. That would have been interesting to see. Lots of tiny creatures scuttling around. And it would have upped the stakes, because obviously that means there's even more creatures that they've got to control but not touch. Yeah, I think I would have liked that myself. You've got me thinking, actually. I think one of my big concerns with the Pating is it looks too cute and it's really small. I think that's a big reason why I didn't find it threatening. That and the fact that it hardly killed anyone. But yeah, we were told, just like, sorry, I've forgotten who sent the message now, but whoever was saying earlier about we're told that all these aliens are dangerous, but we're not actually shown it. We had that with the Pating as well, I think, in that hologram. And we're told that you can't touch it, otherwise you die or whatever. But we don't ever get to see that. And, well, I can imagine it'll be quite a gory thing to show, but for me, I would have liked to have seen that, because then I would properly realise, oh, okay, you can't touch this creature, or else you will die and you will melt or whatever. Green Emeralds doesn't feel like Doctor Who, like they're trying to change the genre. I wouldn't say that myself. The show always changes with a showrunner. And it just takes some getting used to, but that is fair enough if you don't feel like it's Doctor Who. Blue Tail Gang, I think the Timeless Child is either Jenny, the Doctor's daughter, or the woman covering her eyes in the 10th Doctor's last episode. Interesting. So for those of you that haven't been in the previous streams and may not have heard my theory on the Timeless Child, at the moment I like to think it's a secret sibling that the Doctor doesn't know she has. and hopefully in the series finale, this secret sibling will appear, and maybe they could be the villain of the episode. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. I hadn't actually thought of that before. I just sort of said, yeah, it's a secret sibling, and not really thought about how Chris Chibnall would do a story about that. But I think that would be really cool to have this secret sibling appear. God knows how they would appear. But the Doctor would have to stop them. And so they'll be similar to the Master in the way. The Master was obviously the Doctor's best friend. But this, you've got the difference in that it's actually a sibling. So the Doctor feels responsible for them because, well, hopefully she's the older sibling, not the younger one. So she's the one that's meant to set a good example. And the younger sibling has strayed off the path of being good. I think there's a story in that. And if Chris Chibnall doesn't write it, I'll do a fan fiction or something. No, I won't. I'm rubbish at fan fiction. TM Martin, Chibnall is trying to change the whole Doctor Who canon and genre, in my opinion, and I don't like it. Canon and genre. Again, I personally don't feel like that. Trying to change the canon. But if you're still here, TM Martin, please elaborate on that, because I am curious to know how you think he's changing the canon and genre. Gaming Nerd thought it was sad when they talk about Ryan's mum. Yep, I said it earlier. I think it's a horrible way to lose a parent. And at such a young age as well. He was only 13. And yeah, didn't he walk into the kitchen and she was just lying there dead from a heart attack? That's really not nice, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Bluetail Gang, I like the monster, but not the episode. Yeah. So, even though I didn't find the Pating threatening, I thought the CGI was very good, at least. And I like the idea of a small creature that can devour anything. But I think it's better suited to not a TV episode. So maybe a comic or a book or a Big Finish maybe. It doesn't work for a 50-minute Doctor Who episode, because we're expecting scary monsters. We're expecting things like this show has provided villains like the Weeping Angels, the Silence, the Daleks, the Cybermen. Yes, it can have daft villains as well, like the Slitheen. What else? The Adipose, but they still killed people. Like, let's take the Adipose, for instance. They were arguably the cutest villain we've ever had. But Russell T Davies gave us scenes where people turned into these Adipose and died. And it was really not traumatic, but quite scary to see these people just dissolve into balls of fat. And in this episode, the only person that died was shot off into space. And, you know, you don't need an alien to do that. You could just have a human doing it. So what I'm getting at is the Pating didn't do anything. It just went round the ship eating stuff. And yes, I know it damaged the ship and whatnot, but I don't know, I just found it really dull. Astram, do you think Gallifrey will be back? I hope so. I don't know whether I want it to be back in this series or a later one, but I do feel like Stephen Moffat completely ruined Gallifrey's return. Yeah, he brought it back, and then halfway through Hellbent, the Doctor and Clara just left again. And since then, we've had no mention, or we haven't even seen Gallifrey again, so God knows what's happening with that story arc. Ilaki TV, the conundrum was what to do with the monster. Right, okay, fair enough. Again, not interesting in my eyes. I thought, based on the title, the conundrum would be a lot more exciting than what to do with the Pating. Yeah, so, again, a letdown. BJL, thought this episode was bad. Yep, I agree. The The angels have the phone box. This doctor seems to have an obsession with saying sorry. I haven't noticed that myself. But even though you say that, surely that applies to the 10th Doctor as well? Because he would say, I'm so sorry, every episode, at least 3 times. But I quite like that. I found it funny. And there's actually, I think there's several videos on YouTube where people have just made compilations of the 10th Doctor saying sorry. So if you haven't already watched them, go track them down because they're very funny to watch. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying sorry. It's polite. Casey Link, I feel so sad that I've given up on this season after episode 2. That's a shame you've given up on the series. I think keep watching it at least because you never know, the next few episodes might be good. And hopefully Chris Chibnall recovers things slightly in the finale. But also, if you gave up after episode 2, you missed out on Rosa, and that was a very good episode, as I've mentioned like 5 times already in this video. So at the very least, watch episode 3, because that is so good. Iliki TV, the episode took place in the 62nd century. Thank you for telling me. SL Productions agrees. Bluetail Gang, start was good, but did not like the ending. Yes, so let's talk about the start quickly. Yeah, so again, the start was one of the very few things I liked about the episode. I liked the idea of just beginning with the Doctor and her friends exploring a junkyard planet. It reminded me of The Doctor's Wife, which is a very, very good episode that hopefully a lot of you guys love as well. But yeah, so I liked that, and then I liked how they discovered the sonic mine, and then all got injured, and then next thing you know, they're all in this hospital. I thought that was an interesting way to start the episode. But yeah, just as soon as they're on the spaceship and the actual plot begins, I just lost interest, and I didn't care about the supporting characters, as I've said before. And yeah, there's nothing here that's making me want to rewatch the episode. And I'm having a similar problem with last week's episode, actually. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy last week's, but there isn't much rewatch value in it for me. That being said, though, I will rewatch it tonight because I just want to take my mind off how much I disliked this week's episode. But yes, yeah, I've completely forgotten what point I was making now. Oh, I can't even say that name. N3verus Jaffa. Oh, okay, there we go. How would you improve this episode? Very good question. Putting me on the spot there. Okay, off the top of my head, I would get rid of the Pating, and I would put a much more threatening villain inside it. I would have more deaths, because I'm a psycho that enjoys seeing people die in Doctor Who episodes. I would have got rid of the pregnant man. I would have got rid of the general. I would have thought up way more I would try to think of more interesting sub-characters, guest characters, to be in the episode. I would keep the setting. I would leave the opening as it was, because as I just said, I really like that beginning. What else? Yeah, I think the main problems just lies in the guest stars and the lack of threat and the lack of plot as well. So I would try to make sure those 3 things are fixed if I was the writer of that episode. Oh, and actually, another thing, I would actually make there be an interesting conundrum in the episode. I wouldn't have the conundrum be, oh, what do we do with this creature? I would actually think of something that hopefully the audience would find interesting. That would be my plan, anyway. Iliki TV, it's a shame that next episode will include a past version of Yaz's grandma, as it decreases the chance of Grace coming back in the past. I see where you're coming from, but that's not, I don't know, well, it's not set in stone that we won't have an episode. Oh, okay, it actually is. Yeah, come to think of it, Chris Chibnall wouldn't want to have 2 similar stories where they go back in time and they meet a younger version of someone the companion is related to. Yeah, so they wouldn't do it in this series again. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I know I've said in previous streams that if Grace was to come back, I would like an episode set in the past where we see a younger version of her. But that's... I only said that because I knew Grace was a recurring character and I was trying to think of a way for her to realistically come back. Now that we've had Arachnids in the UK and we've seen her as a spirit, hopefully that's how she'll appear in future episodes. We won't have her coming back from the dead. So personally, I won't mind if we do miss out on a story where they go back in time to months before Grace dies. Even though they would be missing out on a good story there. I wouldn't mind it. Because really, the show's done it before. It did it with Father's Day. I feel like I'm missing another episode they did it for. But yeah, Father's Day is the one that comes to mind. Max Carney, Dr. Blue would like to say you are my favourite YouTuber and you are like David Tennant so much and he is my favourite Doctor. Oh, thank you so much, Max. It's really nice of you to say that. And David Tennant is my favourite Doctor as well, so I'm glad we've got similar tastes in Doctors. But thank you for that kind comment. Elaki TV, I think what's missing is a clear story arc. Yeah, me too. It's not necessarily a bad thing to miss out on a story arc, because Series 7 didn't really have one. Well, besides the Impossible Girl series arc. But that was only in the second half of the series. Yes, you don't always need a series arc, but I suppose it does help to keep viewers invested and watch every episode. I mean, we've got a subtle story arc with the Timeless Child, and potentially the Stenza coming back, but that's only been in, well, one episode in the case of the Timeless Child, and 2 in the case of the Stenza, so yeah, it's really not featuring at all in this series. Jack Parry didn't like the episode. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, what did you make of the Doctor being so physically vulnerable in pain and mentioning she has an ectospleen? But did you notice neither she or the companions had a scratch on them? Yes, I did want to bring this up actually, so thank you for doing it for me. So I thought it was interesting that the Doctor spent the first, I think it was like 15 minutes or so, running around in pain. I thought that was something a bit different and was nice to see a vulnerable side to her. And, well, I have no thoughts on her mentioning having an ectospleen. I don't even know what that is, not going to lie, so that was just a line of dialogue for me. But yeah, no, I obviously noticed that none of them had injuries, but then I do feel like that was explained in the episode. I think the hospital staff had repaired them. But no, my big question from this whole feeling pain aspect was, why was the Doctor the only one that felt pain, not the companions? Please let me know, anyone watching, if you have an answer to that. Maybe I missed the explanation, but yeah, I found it very odd that the Doctor was staggering around, clutching at her sides, and her companions were fine straight away. Maybe it was the fact she was a Time Lord? I do not know. Paul Owens, the monster looked like Stitch. It did actually, didn't it? I didn't think of that myself. Elaki TV, liked the monster and the pregnant man. I feel left out. Well, that's okay. Everyone's allowed to be in the minority. I'm sure there's other people who have liked the monster and pregnant man as well. Again, plug for the poll. Say what you thought of the episode up there. Okay, because I brought it up, I will quickly check how the poll is getting on. And actually, how far behind in the messages am I? 20 minutes. Okay, not too bad. Oh god, I feel like my eye's twitching. Can't have that happening on a live video. Alright, so bear with while this loads up. So... oh, right, this looks interesting. So, how do you rate the episode? 5% of people said they loved it. I wasn't expecting that, but that's fair enough. 30% of people liked it. 20% of people said it was okay. But the winner so far, with 40%, was people not liking the episode. And then 5% of people hated it. God, so yeah, it's a very mixed episode, this one. Which Series 11 episode is the best so far? Rosa is still winning. I'm very pleased to see that. That's got 70% of the vote. Then in joint second is episodes 1 and 2. And then in joint third is Arachnids in the UK and the Tsuranga Conundrum. Then for which Series 11 enemy is the best so far? Oh, the winner is Tim Shaw again. I think he lost last week. I think the Mutant Spiders and Krasco beat him, as far as I remember. But yeah, he's leading at the moment. If you haven't already voted, do it now to affect the polls. But yeah, 52% of people thought Tim Shaw is the best villain so far. No one has voted for the Remnants. 26% of people have voted for Krasco. Oh, no one's voted for the Pating either. And 21% of people have voted for the Mutant Spiders. And then finally, which episode 5 is your favourite? 55% of people voted for that Angels Take Manhattan. I suppose I can see why, because it is a good exit for Amy and Rory. But I must admit, I do find it a poorly written episode in places. I'm not going to go into it now, but I enjoyed it. But it is a bit of a timey-wimey mess. Yeah. 15% of people voted for Time Heist. No one voted for today's episode or The Girl Who Died. And 30% of people voted for my favourite episode, Oxygen. Very interesting. That is cool. So yeah, keep voting away, because I'll return to this later on. And I love seeing how you all vote in the polls. It's just good to get a good indication of the audience, what everyone likes and doesn't like. TM Martin, Dr. Blue, how do you rate the scare factor for this episode? When I saw Pating, I lolled for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, so this episode was a 1 out of 5 in terms of scariness. Not necessarily a bad thing, because not every episode has to be scary. And really, last week's episode was the one that had the task of being scary or creepy. So I didn't mind the fact it wasn't scary. It's just I don't want it to become too comical and too kiddie. And I suppose the Pating wasn't too kiddie, because it did pull quite a, not a scary face, but an intimidating face. No, not intimidating, that's the wrong word for it. I can't find the word right now, but it was a face, at least. It was a face that wasn't all happy, looking like Stitch all the time, or a smiling adipose. But yeah, so there was some threat there, but as I keep saying in this video, it just wasn't threatening enough for me, and it didn't help sustain the plot. But yeah, I can see why you found it funny. Oh, my hair is a mess. Oh dear. Dr. Collectible, Dr. Blue, do you think by the end of the series, Graham will die and Yaz will be the one there for Ryan, and they will then travel together in Series 12? I think there's a good chance that could happen, to be honest. I mentioned it in last week's live stream. I think several people actually suggested that Graham could die at the end of the series. And the more I think about it, the more I think that's going to happen. I think Bradley Walsh only signed up for this one series, and he probably found it way too busy to juggle this show with his game show host duties. And I think he's got a new show coming up next year, so that'll be 3 things to juggle. And I do get the feeling that maybe Graham will die. But then that's horrible on Ryan, because it means he's lost his mum, he's got an absent dad, his gran's dead, and now Graham's dead. So I hope that's not the case for his sake, and also I love Graham as a character, so I wouldn't want him to go. But at the same time, as I said earlier, I do think the show needs less companions, or it will be good to mix up the companions for next series. Um, Jack Parry got a midnight vibe from the start of the episode with the unseen banging. I was really excited, but ultimately let down by a pating. Um, okay, I did not get a midnight vibe myself. I can see why you got one, because obviously banging on a spaceship, that is basically the plot of Midnight. Love that episode though. Um, yeah, no, I wasn't reminded of Midnight myself. But yeah, just like with you, I was let down by the pating. I was really excited to find out what it looked like and what it could do. And I just ultimately, yes, I liked the design of it and I thought the CGI was good, but it's not the most interesting thing in the world to have a creature that can eat anything. And it wasn't used that well, and we hardly saw it as well, I think. Um, and I want the villains to get more screen time because then, I don't know, you get more intimidated by them, possibly. And Martin, the only thing I were pretty much bang on with the science. Again, thank you very much for bringing up something that's on my list. Um, yes, so as with you, I completely agree with your comment. Yeah, well, you've said it's the only thing you like. This is one of the few things I like. But yeah, that whole discussion with the antimatter engine or whatever it was, that was one of the few moments in the episode that I felt like we were with the Doctor. I don't know why, but I just felt like Jodie's performance was a bit off this week. Maybe that will change if I rewatch the episode, but there was just something not there for me. Maybe I was just being too critical because I was bored. Um, but no, yeah, so that sciencey scene, I enjoyed it, A, from a science point of view, but also it made me feel like we were with the Doctor. God, I'm drinking a lot today. I suppose it's to be expected, the amount of talking I'm doing. Penguin thought the episode was shocking. Elaki TV, who's the tiny person the Dalek's pointing to? Is it Osgood? It's actually, I showed them off last week, it's River Song. And sadly, my camera doesn't zoom in. But, well, yeah, I've made her point her gun to herself. But it's annoying how they've printed the eyes. They've printed it on her forehead rather than her actual eye. So she looks like a cyclops. Is that what they're called? Yeah. Yeah, she looks like a cyclops more than a human. So out of all my figures, she's the one that I care least about. Bluetail Gang. I think Yaz will be important in the next episode. Her family will be the main focus. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. So I think I'll probably be wrong in this, but I think next week's episode will begin in present-day Sheffield, and we'll have scenes of Yaz with her family and then visiting her gran. Her gran will tell her some sort of story, or maybe refuse to tell Yaz a story. And then we'll have a scene in the TARDIS where Yaz is like, oh, my gran's all secretive. Can we go back in time and find out what it was, or see her when she's younger? And then they'll do it. Then we'll have the plot of the episode and we'll meet the demons, which hopefully won't be a letdown like the Pating. And yeah, eventually we'll find out what Yaz's gran's secret was. And then the episode will end and hopefully we'll all enjoy it. That's my theory, at least. Let me know if you guys have any other theories. But yeah, no, I do think she'll be important next week's episode. And like you said, her family will be the main focus. So I'm praying the episode is good. Yeah, I just want it to be much better than this week's episode. Unlike Eden, hasn't seen the episode yet. All I want to know is how good is it? Well, if you want my opinion, if you're still here, I didn't like it. So make of that as you will. You may. I mean, there's a couple of people in the chat who have liked it. Feel free to check out the polls as well. See, judge it based on how everyone's voted in the first question. But yeah, when I last checked it, most people disliked it. So that seems to be the verdict, unlike Eden. Clint Waltman, I feel like people are going to blame the fact the Doctor is a woman on why this season sucks. Very unfortunate. It sucks because Chibs can't write sci-fi very well. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that could happen. I feel like people are going to blame the fact the Doctor's a woman on why this season sucked. Yeah, there's always going to be people that are refusing to adapt to this new Doctor. And there'll be idiots that will use the fact that the Doctor is a woman as the sole reason why Series 11 isn't really hitting all the points it should be hitting. I want to be proven wrong, but there's always naysayers, really. And yeah, Chris Chibnall can't write sci-fi well. I think, having seen the episodes that he's written in Series 11 so far, I think I'm inclined to agree. And it's a shame, because I thought he did well in his previous Doctor Who episodes, and I thought he did well in Torchwood. Maybe he's just no good when he's in charge of the show. Maybe he needs restrictions. But yeah, no, I just don't have high hopes for him as a writer at the moment. Jack Parry, Chris didn't write the next episode, so we could see something different. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And like I said earlier, Rosa is my favourite episode of Series 11, and that was only partly written by Chris Chibnall. I do feel like that was much more Mallory Blackman's work than Chris Chibnall's, and that's probably a big reason why I like the story so much. Elaki TV, I'm worried the Pating will become a recurring indestructible monster that gets defeated time and time again, like the Borg in Star Trek. I don't think we'll be seeing it again anytime soon, Elaki. I may be wrong. There are people speculating that all the villains of Series 11 will come back in the finale. I have no idea how that will work, because a lot of them won't even be able to communicate with each other, and you'll have sizing differences with the Pating being really small and the mutant spiders being large. Yeah, so that wouldn't work. Sorry, I've lost my point again. But yeah, no, I don't think the Pating will return anytime soon. Paul Owens thought the episode was bland, the monster was bland, and the set was awful and headache-inducing. I quite liked the set myself. I love a good spaceship, and for some reason I love a good white, clean spaceship as well. I don't know why. I like all kinds of spaceships, let's be honest. I like it when they're dark and dingy, like the TARDIS, and I like the clean ones as well. So the setting I thought was good, and again, that's one of the few things I liked about the episode. But yeah, what else did you say? The episode was bland, I agree there. Monster was bland, I agree. But no, the set, I personally liked it. How far behind am I? Oh, I'm getting worse. 30 minutes. Crazy. Paul Hurst, I think this will be up there with Fear Her, Love and Monsters and Kill the Moon as one of the worst episodes of Modern Who. This alien sucked and looked more like a weird space pet. Yeah, I don't think this episode is going to be fondly remembered in the years to come. Personally, I like Love and Monsters. Well, actually, I'm more than like it. I love Love and Monsters, which may come as a surprise to many of you, but I just think it's a really good episode. But yeah, Fear Her, Kill the Moon I don't mind, but I will happily admit the science is very off in that story. But no, at the very least, this will be up there, I think, as one of the worst episodes of New Who. And I like your description of the Pating there. Philip Hawkins thought the episode was an improvement on last week. The plot had a proper resolution this week, which was nice. And I thought the side characters felt real this time, not stereotypes. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing, Philip. What can I say about that then? Yeah, so the resolution. It was nice that we got a clear-cut resolution this week because loads of people, myself included, had an issue with last week's episode in that we just didn't see what happened to the vast majority of the spiders. We just saw the massive one die, and then everything faded to black, and then suddenly everyone was deciding to be companions. So we never got any closure. Yeah, so it was good that we at least got a definitive ending for this story. But personally, I thought this episode was much worse than last week's. Last week's I thought was at least creepy, and I was much more interested in it, even though I do still have problems with last week's story. And this one, even on my first viewing, I just felt bored. And I don't feel like that with many episodes. And as for the characters, I said this earlier, I'm not sure if you heard this bit, but I just wasn't a fan of these characters. Yes, they may have been real, whereas last week's ones probably were stereotypes, but I don't know, I just couldn't connect to this week's side characters. The pregnant man, no. And the general, I didn't care much for. The android, I love androids. I've recently been playing a game called Detroit Become Human, which I love. So I was curious to see how an android would fit into this episode, but he was poorly used. He just did nothing. He might as well have just been a carer, a human carer for the general, because the fact he was a robot did not come into it at all. And then, the general's brother, I liked him at least. I thought Ben Bailey Smith did a good performance. But even he, I found bland. But yeah, that's just me. Oh, and then I've completely forgotten about the two medical staff. The first one, I thought, couldn't act. Or just wasn't trying in this episode. I just didn't care about him. And the woman, I've completely forgotten her name, so sorry about that. She was okay, but again, they're just not interesting. At least with last week's characters, I felt something towards Robertson in that I hated him, and I was curious to get to know Yaz's family. I will admit the scientist didn't really intrigue me. But I thought the characters were stronger last week. Paul Owens agrees with Philip. Elaki TV agrees with me. The spiders last week were really gripping. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, what is the Doctor actually a doctor of? And trivia alert, which doctor said he studied for a medical degree in Glasgow in the 19th century? I have no idea what the Doctor is actually a doctor of. I thought it was everything, and I thought this episode made reference to that as well. Elaki TV has responded that the second Doctor said that. I did not know that. Casey Link thinks the Timeless Child is just the Doctor. Right, I need to try and catch up with these comments. Elliot Bray, the Pating might have worked if it was more of a midnight type thing. No one knows what it is. How dangerous. The episode discovers what it does. Yeah, you have a point there. But then, if we have loads of stories where we don't find out what the creature is, I think, A, that diminishes the appeal of Midnight, because at the moment it's one of very few stories where we don't find out all the answers. And also it's just lazy sometimes. It can't just be done for the sake of it. It has to really, I don't know, it has to be part of the story. I don't know how else to explain that. But here, I think if we didn't know much about the Pating, that would have made the episode even worse, because then we would have had even less of a plot and we wouldn't have seen the creature or found out much about it. I don't know, it might have made it more of a curious tale. I don't know, we'll never know, because that is not the episode we got. Tia Martin, this episode had some emotional wallop with the pregnant man considering giving up his child for adoption, and Ryan's dad issues, and General Cicero, no idea how to pronounce that, having pilot's heart and dying. Oh yeah, that was the disease she had. Right, okay, yeah, so I suppose it was emotional then. But it was subtle about it, I would say. Uh, Blue Tail Gang is wondering where the Weeping Angel toy is. It's still there. It's up in the corner. I'll bring it down if you want, so that we can have at least something scary about this episode, even though it's nothing to do with the episode. Philip Hawkins is wondering if anyone else thought the Pating looked like a Nibbler from Futurama. It does actually, doesn't it? I'm going to quickly Google that because you've got me thinking now, Philip. Futurama Nibbler. Oh god, my eyesight. I don't know what's happening there. Yeah, it does. That's quite cool. I would show the camera, but I doubt you would be able to see it. Right. God, I'm really far behind. Sorry, everyone, if you're waiting for me to respond to your message. Dr. Collectible, do you think episodes 1 to 5 of Series 11 are better than episodes 1 to 5 of Series 8, 9 and 10? Very good question. Oh, and another one that puts me on the spot. Do I think it's better than Series 8, 9 and 10? Okay, not better than Series 10. I thought the first 5 episodes of Series 10 was much better than the first 5 episodes of this series. Probably better or on par with Series 9. The only stories I like in the first 5 episodes of Series 9 are the Under the Lake and Before the Flood 2-parter. So, yeah, no, okay, I'm going to make a firm choice here. I think Series 11 is better than Series 9 when it comes to the first 5 episodes. And then as for Series 8, that has to be... Well, Series 8, I think, did the first 5 episodes better. Loved Deep Breath. Into the Dalek was okay. Robot of Sherwood was okay. As with Series 11, actually, Episode 2 was okay in both Series 8 and Series 11. Episode 3 of Series 11 was amazing. Rosa, that's now the 6th time I've mentioned it, I think. Time Heist I enjoyed as well. Yeah, no, basically Series 8 I think is better than Series 11 in terms of the first 5 episodes. Thank you for that question. Paul Owens thinks the Pating is a cross between Nibbler and Stitch. I wouldn't have been surprised to see either Lilo or Leela appear from around the corner. That would have been weird, having a crossover between the shows. Motorhawk 2, I think Multiple Companions is better with stories of 2 or more episodes. The longest stories, something Multiple Companions. The longest stories gives Multiple Companions a chance for the story to develop and give us more insight and understanding. Yeah. I think, yeah, I do hope with Series 12 we have a return to 2-parters. Because, yeah, you can tell more of a story with that. Although in Chris Chibnall's case, maybe not, because he's struggling to come up with plots for 50-minute episodes, let alone an hour and 40 minutes. My God. Gaming Nerd is wondering if anyone has any ideas for the Christmas special. I have no idea myself, so, well, I'm just hoping we get a Christmas special, because there are rumours at the moment we won't be getting one this year, which I really hope is not true. Because I love the Christmas specials. I always look forward to it. And it's just a really nice way to end Christmas after spending the day with family and unwrapping presents. And yeah, just a New Year's Day special wouldn't be as, well, special as a Christmas Day one. And there is a risk that as soon as Doctor Who has a year without a Christmas special, it will lose that slot in the schedule and it will never be able to get it again. Ewan Houtcrow just tuned in. Well, this was half an hour ago now. What did I think of the episode? I found it pretty bang average. Yep, I was the same, except I disliked it for being average. Clint Waltman is saying Season 11 is far much worse than Series 8, 9 and 10. Interesting. Tim Martin, in response, canon meaning the thing about Doctor Who being a sister. When did we ever hear about the Doctor having siblings? Chibnall is rewriting the Doctor's background. Oh, okay, I see what you mean now. Well, if you're on about the same line as the one I think you're on about, I think it was in the Ghost Monument. She talked about being a sister. I just took that as being a joke where the Doctor, as a man, for some reason, was a sister in this nunnery or whatever it was. So I didn't take that to mean the gender, because we all know the Doctor started off as a man, and it would be stupid for Chibnall to try and undo that canon. Elaki TV, I'm glad you wouldn't wish the way Ryan's mum died on anyone, but I must say that is rather nice of you. Oh, thank you. Well, I think it's just human decency to not wish that on anyone, because that's just a horrible thing to go through in your childhood. Paul Owens, sadly this series is degenerating into a farce full of caricatures. A very pale shadow of what it once was. Yeah, I suppose I kind of agree. Like for me, I think the best era was the Russell T Davies and David Tennant era. And I think ever since then, there has sort of been a steady decline, with the odd series being better. So it's a bit like a roller coaster, really, or a wave. Yeah, obviously I can't judge this series properly until we've seen all the episodes. But really, for the most part, it is average. Episodes 1, 2, 4 and 5 are average, or maybe slightly above average. Rosa was outstanding. There we go, 7 times I've mentioned that. I'm just going to try and plug it into every single response to a comment now. No, I won't do that. Yes, we've had 1 brilliant episode and 4 average or slightly better than average, and that's not really a good sign, especially when we've only got 10 episodes this year. Oh, Dr. Collectible is saying about how there were 2 deaths this episode. The guy who got blew up in the ship and the general. Yeah, for some reason I forgot the general died, even though it was quite clear that she did. And we had that funeral as the last scene. Yeah, I didn't put 2 and 2 together for some reason. Tia Martin is wondering when Chris Chibnall will announce whether or not there will be a Christmas special. And if it gets cancelled, will there be a fan revolt? I hope there'll be a revolt if it gets cancelled, because as I've said earlier, I just really think Doctor Who needs a Christmas special every year. I know we're not entitled to one, but they've been doing it for the past 13 years now, and it would be stupid to stop doing it now. Especially because I think Stephen Moffat only wrote Twice Upon a Time last year to make sure Doctor Who still had the Christmas slot. So that would be heartbreaking for him to have put all that energy into this episode when he was meant to leave at the end of Series 10, only to have Chris Chibnall in his first series as showrunner be like, no, I'm doing a New Year's Day special instead of a Christmas one. Penguin, when the 10th Doctor said sorry, it was normally for something meaningful, not just blurting it out left and right for little reason. Okay. I might have mentioned this earlier, but I have not noticed the Doctor saying sorry for no reason. I'll try and look out for that when I watch the episode again. Bluetail Gang, I think the Timeless Child is the woman who covered her eyes on the 10th Doctor's last episode. Also, I think this is the Doctor's daughter, but not Jenny. That's fair enough. Personally, I don't think we'll be seeing that woman again. And I think she was actually the Doctor's mother, and it just wasn't explained in the episode. So, I don't know. We never know until we eventually find out. Elliot Bray liked the junk planet. Yeah, me too. I thought, God knows where they filmed it. They probably filmed it on an actual, like, scrap heap. But no, I thought the CGI was very good, and I did believe it was a junk planet. Dash Maniac, the Doctor never found the TARDIS in the end. Not on screen, but we just have to assume she found it off screen. And presumably they just they took her all the way back to this junkyard, and by some miracle, no one scavenged it, and that's how they managed to get away. That's what we've got to assume anyway. Dr. Collectible is wondering if it's true that there's no Series 12 in 2019. Again, that's just a rumour, so we don't know anything until the BBC announce it. But again, just like with the Christmas special rumours, I really hope this isn't true, because I hate it when Doctor Who has massive gaps. Because I just feel like people forget about the show then, and aren't as fussed when it does come back. And I know from experience, like, only a year after I became a Doctor Who fan, we had the break for the specials year, where we only had Planet of the Dead, The Waters of Mars, and The End of Time. So we only had 3 stories, or 4 episodes, across a whole year. And that was bearable. But even the gap between Planet of the Dead and The Waters of Mars, that was only like 6 months. But me being, I think, 12 at the time, it was such a long gap, and I was desperate for Doctor Who to return. So if I could barely handle that, being a kid, I really don't get how kids nowadays handle these year-long gaps. Well, no, it's even longer than a year. It's like a year and a half. So yeah, I feel sorry for them if there's no Series 12 in 2019. I forgot what year it's going to be next year then. But yeah, also I'm impatient as well. I want Doctor Who to come back every autumn without fail, and it just bugs me when a series gets postponed. Right. Elliot Bray thinks it would have been better if they didn't know what the creature was. The TARDIS crew see it and underestimate it, and it just completely devours someone. Yeah, I love that idea. Yeah, sorry, I had to think about that then. Yeah, I think, again, this is going back to how twisted I am. I think it would have been really cool if we saw the Pating actually devour a human. And I don't know how they would do the effect for it, but it would be, in a weird, morbid way, it would be quite satisfying to see this whole full-sized human get eaten by this tiny creature with a tiny mouth. I would like it, at least. Everyone else would probably hate it, but again, I think that would be something that makes the creature more threatening. Right, before going... Oh, I can't be bothered to go through my list. My list is literally just a list of dislikes, and I can't be bothered to be that negative all in one go, at least. So I'll gradually bring things in if the messages link into it. And I think I will wrap up in about 17 minutes. So if you've just joined, message away what you thought of the episode. Please do vote in the polls as well, because I'll be doing a final run through of them. And hopefully I can catch up to the messages in time, because I'm currently 40 minutes behind. Wow. I'm not sure if there's loads of comments this week, or if I'm just being especially slow reading them out. I have no idea. Rob Littlewood, the episode looked great. Great sets, great effects, dull writing, mediocre acting. Yeah, agree with all those points. I've already mentioned the set. I think I've mentioned the visual effects. I really believed the Pating was actually there. But yeah, the negatives were the writing. It was just a non-existent plot. They didn't do anything. I think I mentioned how I didn't like the acting of the Astos, I think that was his name, the male medical person. I thought the other guest stars were decent enough, but him I wasn't a fan of. Bluetail Gang, who is your favourite companion in all of Doctor Who? Mine is Amy Pond. Very good question. Oh, it put me on the spot. I always say that, but so many of you come up with really good questions to ask me, and I do like to think a bit. Either Donna or Martha, I think, at the moment. Martha doesn't get nearly as much love as she deserves, so I like to stand up for her. And Donna was hilarious, and I liked how she's one of the few companions that doesn't fancy the Doctor. And I just love the Donna and the Doctor together. I thought that was a really good partnership. Tia Martin, do you miss the pre-credit scene? I do, and wish they could go back to that before they just jump right into the story cold. Yeah, so I'm in two minds about the pre-titles. On the one hand, I'm glad that the title sequence signifies the beginning of the episode now, and I'm sort of glad they're trying something new this series. But on the other hand, the pre-titles is a really good way to grip people into the story and ensure they stick around. But then sometimes you feel like the pre-credits have just been made for the dramatic moment, and it doesn't always fit into the story. So it depends on the writer. It could go either way. But no, I don't think I mind it overall. Dash Maniac thinks this series is missing a good villain, but they liked Tim Shaw or Sim Shah. They need to bring back a good villain, maybe not from Doctor Who, maybe something like the Trickster from Sarah Jane Adventures. Yeah, so the villains have been lackluster in this series. Yeah, none of them stand out for me, and that's worrying, considering we've had 5 episodes now. That being said, I do like Tim Shaw. I like Krasko as well, even though I'll probably forget about him very soon. The spiders were creepy, but were ultimately just spiders. The Pating is kind of laughable now that I'm thinking about it. The Remnants are ridiculous. Wasn't ever really a fan of the Remnants. But the Trickster would be cool to come back. Although I don't think it would be suited for Doctor Who. I don't know. I always was creeped out by the Trickster. I don't know if any of you guys were, but I just found his lack of facial features really unnerving, and I never liked that. But no, I thought he was definitely the best villain in the Sarah Jane Adventures. But actually, you've got me thinking now. So many of the Sarah Jane Adventures villains, I would say, are better than what we've had in Doctor Who so far. I mean, well, it's typical. Like, under this pressure, I've completely forgotten all of the villains we've had now. But we had, what did we have? We had the Blatherine, which I thought were interesting. How you're led to believe they're good, but then ultimately they're just like the Slitheen. Come on, brain, think of more. The Bane I quite liked as well, even though the CGI was awful. Come on, there was loads I liked, but I just can't think of them. The Nightmare Man. I loved the Nightmare Man. He was scary. Anyone else? Can't think. Oh, Androvax, the Veil, I think. The one that could take over bodies. Great concept. Great design of the villain as well. Yeah, Doctor Who is missing villains as good as the ones we've had in the Sarah Jane Adventures, and that's bad. The fact that a kid show, not that a kid show's bad, but the fact that a kid show has come up with better villains than what Doctor Who currently has, that's not good. Angel of Rock doesn't feel like Ryan and Yaz bring anything to the show. Fair enough. Well, I've said this before, Graham is my favourite companion so far. But I still like Ryan and Yaz. And I'm intrigued to see how Yaz is involved in next week's episode. Because as someone said earlier, it does look like it's going to be all about her and her family next week. Dash Maniac. There are only 2 scenes from the Series 11 trailer that we have not seen yet, and they are both in a triangular corridor, so probably from the same episode. And one of the scenes is the Doctor blowing a kiss. So I think it's from the last episode after the Doctor has lost a companion. Very well observed. You might be right there. And you've just reminded me, actually, I did think that final scene in that white area originally I thought that was going to be in this week's episode. Obviously, because of the white set, we had a white spaceship for the majority of this episode. And I think, well, come to think of it, I think the Doctor is wearing a blue shirt, not a purpley burgundy one. But I didn't notice that at the time. But no, I really thought that scene would be in this week's episode. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see if that's from the finale now. Philip Hawkins doesn't mind the look of the pating. There is something creepy about a creature that looks cute at first, but then suddenly bare its teeth and be deadly. Yeah, good point. I think I said earlier that I don't mind the look of the pating. It's just the fact that it didn't cause much damage to anything, which is silly of me to say because I know it did damage to the ship, but I mean, it didn't really affect the characters. All it did was it killed off Atos, or whatever his name was, damaged a few components, and then ate a bomb. Like, that was it, and I just wasn't very interested in it. But no, the design and the CGI, I will give the episode credit for that, because that was very good. And I think this is something I put on my list, actually. As much as I am 50-50 with the pating, I wouldn't mind getting a plush version of that for Christmas. I've actually got an adipose over there. I'll show it off. Might as well. There it is. A stress toy that my mum got me, I think, for Christmas once. So yeah, I wouldn't mind having a plush of the pating. I think that would be quite cool and small enough to hide away somewhere so that I don't have to see it if it bugs me. Tia Martin, Dr. Blue, you said Jodie's performance was a bit off this week, but don't you think she's finally dialing down the eye-rolling and children's party wackiness and becoming more mysterious and charismatic? Very good question. Really, I can't answer that until I rewatch this episode, if I'm even going to do that. No, all I can say is just with this episode, I just felt like something was off, but in fairness, that may just be me looking for negatives this week. But I must admit, every week, I think Rosa was the only episode I didn't feel like this, but with every Chris Chibnall story, basically, I just haven't connected to the Doctor as much as I should have. I still like her, don't get me wrong, but I just, I don't know, I really can't put it into words. Maybe it's the fact I find her too childish, as you made reference to. I don't know. Maybe one day it will come to me. Elaki TV, my prediction for the next episode reminds me of Father's Day. Yeah, I suppose maybe that was my inspiration for the idea. But no, I do get the feeling that's what they're going to do with next week's episode. Right, so I'm going to wrap up in 7 minutes, guys. So if you've recently joined and haven't voted in the polls, do it very quick. Hopefully I'm pointing in the right corner there. I have no idea. Yeah, and hopefully I will be able to catch up to all the messages in time. Right, so sorry if I skip your message now. I just want to try to get to the, well, any messages that I feel like I can say something to. Thank you all for your comments, by the way. Even if I don't respond to all of them, I do appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to share your thoughts on the episode. Oh, fun fact from Dash Maniac. Arachnids in the UK was rated a 6.2 on Rotten Tomatoes, making it the 3rd worst rated Doctor Who episode on Rotten Tomatoes. I did not know that, so thank you very much for sharing. 3rd worst rated episode. I don't think it deserves that, to be honest. Even though it's not the best episode, I think it's far from the worst, so that is a shame if that's the case. Ilo Pop. I think this is why I didn't like the male medical guy. So Ilopop is saying the guy who died at the start didn't show any emotion just before he died. I completely forgot about that, or maybe I just missed it. I just found he had no emotion, full stop. And he just, I don't know, maybe he was doing it in a subtle way that I'm too stupid to understand, but I just did not like him. I just could not be bothered with him, really. Oh, a lot of good comments that I'm having to skip. Dave H is annoyed that the books and DVDs in the background are not straight. Sorry about that. In the case of those Being Human books, it's because, well, as you can tell, I've literally just thrown them in there because I think I was in a rush and I had to tidy my room quickly. Blue Tail Gang, have you seen the new Doctor Who book? If you're on about the 13th Doctor books, I'm aware of them, at least, but I haven't actually read them yet or bought them. But I'm intrigued by them at least, and hopefully I'll get them for Christmas. Tia Martin, what's up with the grey shirts behind you? Are they wardrobe picks for tomorrow? Nope, they're just clothes that I think I've already worn. You know what, I have no idea why they're there, so I'm not even going to try to answer that. Hopefully they're not too distracting. Now that you've mentioned it, I can't stop seeing it in the screen. Oh, I don't like skipping comments. Oh dear, hopefully you all don't mind. Oh, the synopsis has just been released for episode 7. How exciting. I'm going to look into that then after this stream. Luke NUFC doesn't think anything will beat the RTD era. I'm glad you agree with me there. And I just hit my shoulder. Alex Roberts likes Jodie's performance, but her scripts have been really hit and miss. Some of the dialogue feels like bad fan fiction. People are calling her a bad doctor already, and it's pretty unfair. Maybe that's why I feel like things are off with her then. Maybe it's the dialogue more than her performance. Yeah, again, I just don't know. All I know is just when I see her, I just feel like something's off. But I just can't put my finger on it. Probably because I'm too stupid to pick up on it. Isla Pop thinks the next episode will be like Father's Day. I hope it's similar to Father's Day, but not too similar in that it becomes a copy, because then it loses its originality. But no, Father's Day was a very good episode, and so I'd welcome similarities as long as it's not directly copied. Motorhawk 2, a long break in the show would be the BBC shooting themselves in the foot, as it insults the fans and takes away support from the companies that buy licenses to make tie-in merchandise. Yeah, I agree. Oh, another fun fact from Dash Maniac. Rotten Tomatoes also gave Kill the Moon an 8.9, so I wouldn't trust them for a second opinion. Oh dear. Yeah, I must admit, I never really understood the hate for Kill the Moon. Well, I get people hate the science. Well, heck, even I hated the science of the episode. How the creature laid an egg that was bigger than itself. No, I don't agree with that at all. But I liked what it was trying to do with the Doctor stepping back and letting humanity decide what to happen next. And I love the big argument between the Doctor and Clara at the end of the episode. I love the spiders. I thought they were really scary. In a way, I think I found them scarier than the spiders from last week's episode. I love the setting of the moon. The school kid, Courtney, she was okay, I guess. A bit annoying. But no, I quite like the episode. But it is one that I haven't seen that many times. Hopefully not deliberately. Casey Link, are they Harry Potter books on that shelf? Yep, well spotted. All 7 of them, including Harry Potter and the Cursed Child script. 10-World Dude, liked the medic who died early on. He seemed quite stoic as he died. Thought the episode was not bad. Think it would have worked better if the monster had actually been scary. Fair enough. I have no idea what stoic means, so that's quite embarrassing. I'll Google it later on. But yeah, I definitely think the episode would have been better if the monster was scarier and did more, as I keep saying. But as it is, I don't like it. Tia Martin is going. Oh, am I managing to catch up? Hooray! Thank you so much for hanging in and providing your great commentary week after week. See you next week, and I think the Demons of the Punjab will be controversial. Absolute pleasure, Tia Martin. Thank you guys for sticking around. I'm not wrapping up just yet, so please stick around if you want to hear the final poll results and me try to reach the end of the comments. Right. Oh, I'll quickly reach the end of the comments now. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to have to look into this episode 7 synopsis, because at this moment in time, live on this live stream, I have no idea what episode 7 is. It could be the Witchfinders episode. It could be a futuristic episode we don't know about. Yeah, I have no idea. So this bit's always the most exciting, when we start to get details of the new episodes and we start to get images. Dash Maniac episode 9 is the Witchfinders. Is that confirmed, or is that just a theory? Okay, right, so I'm going to hide the chat and let's have a look at the poll. Yeah, I get the feeling the historical episodes of Series 11 will be the best ones this year. I'm basing that solely on the fact that Rosa was a really good episode. There we go. Mention 8 or more. But yeah, no, I'm very optimistic about next week's episode, mainly because it's not Chris Chibnall writing it. But yeah, I'm quite fascinated to learn more about the partition of India, because I have no idea about it at the moment. Yes, so that's quite exciting. And the Witchfinders episode as well. I have a feeling the Doctor will be in danger in that episode because she's a woman, and I'm presuming the character she comes across will assume she's a witch and will try to burn her at the stake. So the Doctor will actually be in genuine jeopardy. Excuse me, where's all the results gone? Oh. For some reason, YouTube has just signed me out. So I don't know what's happening there. Am I back? Hopefully it hasn't affected this live stream. But, okay, right, I'm back on my laptop. Right, there we go. Let's try again. Oh, dearie me. Technical difficulties right at the end. Right, okay. How would you rate the Tsuranga Conundrum? The winner, with 39% of the vote, is I didn't like it, which is also what I voted for, so it's nice to know I'm not in the minority for this. In second place, with 32%, is I liked it. So we've got an interesting contrast there of a lot of people not liking it, but then a lot of people liked it as well. Then we've got 14% in the middle, thinking it was okay. 10% of people loved it, and 3% hated it. So it's a very mixed bag, this episode. Which Series 11 episode is the best so far? The winner is Rosa for the 3rd week in a row, which is good news because that's the one I voted for, and I do think it deserves it because it is such a good episode. In second place, it's The Woman Who Fell to Earth, which, yeah, I think that's fair. I think out of the Chris Chibnall episodes, that's probably my favourite one as well. Then it's The Ghost Monument with 7%. Then it's last week's episode with 3%. And then finally, it's this week's episode with not a single one of you voting for it. Wow. Crazy. Which Series 11 enemy is the best so far? The winner, for the second time now in these live streams, is Mr. Tim Shaw with 42% of the vote. Then it's Cresco with 28% of the vote. Was not expecting that, but I'm happy nonetheless because I quite liked Cresco. Then it's the Mutant Spiders with 25%. Then it's the Remnants with 3%. And again, not a single person voted for this week's episode. No one voted for the Pating. And then lastly, which episode 5 is your favourite out of the standalone episodes 5s? The winner is still The Angels Take Manhattan with 42% of the vote. Then it's Oxygen, which is my favourite episode of episode 5s, with 35% of the vote. Then it's Time Heist with 14%. And then in joint last place is The Girl Who Died and the Tsuranga Conundrum, this week's episode. Wow. So, yeah, purely based on the polls, it's not looking good for this week's episode. Cool. So, Ewan Halpcrow has explained what stoic means. Means he sort of endures pain without really showing it and putting up with it. Oh, okay. So maybe it was a deliberate thing that he didn't show emotion. The Doctor Who Expert 7. Great live stream, Dr. Blue. Looking forward to next week's episode. Thank you. Hope to see you there. People saying I'm still live. Oh, this is the perfect message to end on, really. Casey Link. It's putting me off. So on that note, thank you very much for watching and sharing in my pain of the episode. Don't get me wrong, it's good that a lot of you liked it as well, but I'm also glad that I'm not in the minority for disliking this episode. And yeah, see you next week for hopefully what will be a much better episode. Bye.